Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. Currently covering a trial out in Arizona versus Michael Turney for the murder of his daughter, Alissa. Except in this case, we don't have a body. We don't even know if she's murdered. She went missing in 2001 on her last day that she was a junior in high school. So she has never been seen since. They have never found a body. And I have yet, this is day 3, I have yet, well, I'm going to recap day 2, but I have yet to hear any evidence that Michael Turney, her stepfather, murdered her. I'm not seeing it. I don't think the jury sees it either. So I'm going to talk about, but we're still, at the beginning of the trial, the prosecution likes to go in a set order. And they usually put their lay witnesses on first, the family, the eyewitnesses, and then they'll put on law enforcement. So we're still in that friends and family zone. And I do want to mention that in this case, the jury is allowed to ask questions, and they do ask questions. You're going to hear about that in this episode. So, what am I working on? The Great Escape 2023, the retreat painting. So, I've gotten a lot done. I did do the little gnome over here. He's painted. There he is. I know it's upside down. I've been moving it around. I'm actually now working on some of this yellow background, the color blocking part, because it's very easy to do that while I'm listening to the trial. But I wanted to show you one of the gifts that I got at the retreat from one of my sisters. Jen, thank you so much. It's like a little affirmation jar, and so each day I've been fishing out an affirmation. I'm going to do one for us today. Today it says, mistakes are just learning through experience. How sweet. Now, I'm not sure, do I take that out or put it back in to read another day? I think I'm going to put it back in. It's so sweet. Okay. And that's true. Mistakes, yeah, they happen, and they don't mean you're a bad person. It just, you're learning. Okay. Enough about that. All right. So Sarah Turney's on this stand. Let me tell you about Sarah Turney. So Sarah is, first of all, she goes on the stand, then a friend goes on the stand, a friend of Alyssa's, then her manager from Jack in the Box, and then her brother, John. And I learned a little bit more about this than I knew before because mom, Barbara, apparently she is a busy woman. She was having babies all over the place. So here's the family dynamic. When she marries Michael Turney in 1993, he brings to the marriage James, Rhett, and Michael. They call him Michael Seth to distinguish him from his father. She brings to the marriage John and Alissa. But John and Alissa don't have the same fathers. John and his mother Barbara left California and moved to Arizona or Phoenix. Well, that's Arizona. Moved to Phoenix, and it was at that time that she had Alissa, but different fathers, from what I understand. So Michael Turney adopted John and adopted Alissa, and then Barbara had, did I say 93? It was earlier than that. She passed away in 1993. So whenever it was, that John was 7, Alissa was 3 when Barbara, the mom, married Michael Turney. She passes away in 1993 from cancer. That really hasn't come out in front of the jury yet. I think they have heard that she passed away, but not really any of the circumstances like I told you about the other day. I don't know that the jury's going to hear about those circumstances or surrounding her death. There's a lot this jury's not going to hear. But are they going to hear enough to convict this guy? I don't know. So, yeah, lots of kids. James, John, Rhett, Michael, and Sarah. 5 kids. So, John, when we finished day 2, John was on the stand. Today, day 3, they will continue his testimony. All right, so let's go back to Sarah. So Sarah's the daughter of John and Barbara. Oh no, I said that wrong. Sarah's the daughter of Mike. I'm getting confused. Mike Turney, the defendant, and Barbara, the mom. So his, hers, ours. That was Sarah. So Sarah was asked, did she graduate from school? No, didn't graduate. So what do you do for a living? She is a podcaster. Now, it's hard to picture this woman as a podcaster because she's very soft spoken and, I've seen her talk to other YouTubers. I've seen her interviewed. I did not know she had her own podcast, but she's a very strong advocate in favor of justice for her sister. And she's talked a lot about it. And from that, she has gotten a career as a podcaster. I'm going to have to look her up and find out which podcast she has and see if it, I love podcasts. I don't know what her podcast is about. I don't know if it's just about finding Alissa. I have no idea. Okay. So she's on the stand, and the first thing the prosecution wants, because she started on the stand the day before, so this is a continuation. So he's asking her about this letter that she found on her sister's dresser. And she said, was there anything about this letter that seemed inconsistent with what you knew to be true about your sister? And she said, well, first of all, she starts out by saying, when you guys dropped me off at school this morning. And she goes, I wasn't there when she was dropped off at school. My dad was there. So that's not really consistent. The other thing was the part where she's saying you got what you wanted. Sarah, you wanted me gone. And so I'm gone. Sarah says that they weren't fighting about anything. I mean, they were sisters. They would bicker, but she said, I didn't want her gone. I never expressed that I wanted her to leave. She said she took care of me. She was like her mom. She would cook for her. She would clean for her. She would teach her how to wear makeup. All these things that a sister does. Especially an older sister who she was 2 years older than Sarah. No, 4 years older than Sarah. A sister who, there's no mother there. Now, more on that later. So she also talked about how there was this phone call that happened from California, allegedly that was Alissa calling her father. Sarah said she did not hear about this phone call. She doesn't remember this phone call. She wasn't present for any portion of that phone call. I mean, she learned about it later, but at this point in time, when Alissa went missing, she doesn't remember anything about this phone call. So she said that they did make one trip to California, her and her dad, to look for Alissa. They went to a mall and they passed out flyers, and they went to the beach. And they said, well, what'd you do at the beach? Well, we just went to the beach. And I'm thinking, well, did you go swimming, sunbathing, passing out flyers? She's like, no, it was just a beach trip to the beach. So she couldn't be any more descriptive than that. But she went on to say that she spent a lot of time in a hotel during this trip while her father was out looking for Alissa. She also remembers a time when they were staking out, so to speak. They were sitting in front of her aunt's house watching the house. But she doesn't remember visiting with her aunt in California. What else? A little bit about Alissa's belongings. After she went missing, Sarah said, I wanted to keep everything. I wanted her furniture. I wanted her makeup. I wanted her clothes. I wanted to keep everything. But Dad got rid of it all. She goes, one day it was there in the garage, the next day it was gone. So all that she has left of her sister is fits in a tote, a single tote. And he did this within a very short time after she went missing. Yeah. Like he didn't wait for her to come back. Like, that's weird. If my child went missing, I mean, many parents have children that go missing. They don't do a thing with the rooms. They just, because they might come back and they might want their stuff. And I don't know, dad just got rid of it all. That seems odd to me. Now, that's not evidence of murder. It's just odd behavior. Let's see. Let me turn the page. Hold on. So, oh, so there was apparently one particular time where Michael Turney, in looking for Alissa, got Alyssa's photo on the hood of a NASCAR racer, and Sarah said that she went to that race, and then afterwards they got the hood. I guess they were gifted the hood, and same thing. She said we had it one day. It was in the garage. Next thing I know, it was gone. But and yeah, I wanted to keep that too. But it is evidence that her father was looking for Alissa. Like, he had her picture on the hood of a NASCAR race car. Yeah, I don't know. So then she was asked about an interview that she did in 2009 with ABC's 2020. I think we're going to be hearing. I think that's going to be played for the jury later on, because it was. My thoughts were that you're asking her questions about an interview on 2020 that the jury hasn't even seen. So it's very out of context. But she was 12 years old when her sister went missing. So a lot of the things that she said during subsequent interviews, both in 2001 and then later on in 2009 or 2008, when police did not do any investigation in 2001. They just thought of her as a runaway. They did not actually start investigating her disappearance until 2008. Now, at that point, 7 years have gone by. Sarah is 19. So she said things that you think of as a 12-year-old, you have a different perspective when you're older, when you're an adult, of what you said when you were 12. So some of the things that she talked about was she had told the detective that Alissa had a temper, that she made poor choices, that she was unpredictable, that she was a partier, and that she had behavioral issues. Now, when asked to clarify these statements, she said, these were things that I thought at the time she went missing. I thought those things about her because that's what my father used to say to me. Now, there was one mention of him brainwashing her, or insinuating that she was making stuff up. She says, listen, I'm not making anything up. I'm just telling you that the feelings that I had for her after she went missing were framed by what my father would tell me about her. I understand that. So she did say that her dad had rules for Alissa that he didn't have for her. Like, as a teenager, and we're talking about after Alissa went missing, she said, I could go anywhere I wanted. I could come and go. He didn't care. Not so with Alissa. She said she had way more freedom than Alissa had. And one of the things that also framed her opinion later on as an adult was she goes, I was a wild child. So in comparison to Alissa, no, she wasn't bad at all. So the defense on cross-examination walked her through. She said, when you went into Alyssa's bedroom that day that she went missing, you didn't see any blood. No. Did you smell any cleaning products? No. Was anything out of out of place? No. And then he walked her through every room in their house. How about the bathroom? Anything out of place? No. Any blood? No. The dining room, the kitchen, dad's room, the whole house. No blood, no smell of cleaning solution, no, nothing out of place the day she disappeared, which I thought was interesting. Interesting that he brought all that out. Then, before she was allowed to leave the stand, the jury got to ask questions. And one of the things they asked about was, tell us about your father. Did he have a job? Was he dating anyone? Did he belong to any clubs? Did he go to church? So she said, no clubs. He just stayed home. He didn't go to church. He wasn't involved in any clubs. That he did not work. He had been disabled since she can remember. Some kind of a knee injury that he received on the job. Remember, he was part of the electrical union. Remember, I told you about him thinking that the union was after him and how paranoid he was. None of this has come out. How paranoid he was and how he had stockpiled all these weapons and he built these bombs and and that he served 10 years in prison for this. I'm going to show you a picture of what he looks like now. This guy is not in good shape. He's in a wheelchair, not in good shape at all. I don't know how old he is, but and I don't have any sense of whether he's incarcerated or out on bond. I don't know. So the next person on the stand, she did not want her face shown. This was the manager from the Jack in the Box. Alissa had worked there for about 6 months at the time she went missing. And she said that Alissa was a great employee. She worked from about 2 to 3 in the afternoon till 9 or 10 at night, just a few times a week because it's part-time and teenagers weren't allowed to work past 10 o'clock. But she said this was someone she didn't have to give a lot of direction to her, and she was really good with customers. But, but she was asked about Michael Turney. She says, yes, I've met her father. I had the opportunity to meet her father. And I know that he used to watch her from the parking lot. So not only did he watch her, and I don't know if the jury's going to learn this, but he would sit and videotape her while she was working. Kind of creepy. Yeah. There's a video where she comes out to the car and she says, Dad, I'm getting in trouble. Stop videotaping me. Now, the jury doesn't know any of that. So, yes, she met her father. So then there was a day, that particular day, she didn't show up for her shift. And so this manager calls Michael Turney and he tells the manager she ran away. She ran away. She went to California. Case closed. Now, he's critical, through his attorney on his opening, that the police dealt with her as a runaway. Well, it sounds like he dealt with her as a runaway too. He didn't say, no, she's not a runaway, she went missing. That's why there was no investigation, because you thought she ran away. They never went into the house. They never looked at anything. They never talked to this manager at Jack in the Box. No police talked to her until 7, 8 years later. Yeah. The next person on the stand was Charity Robinson, and she did show her face. She was friends with Alissa. They met at Charity's 16th birthday. Charity was a sophomore and Alissa was a freshman. And they became fast friends at this birthday party. And they started hanging out. And most of the time it was at Charity's house because Alissa didn't like to hang out at her own house. She said, I went over there maybe once or twice. spent the night one night, and that was it. She said that she was very kind, protective, sweet, very loyal, very protective of her sister. She said, they had typical sister relationship where they would bicker and argue over things, but they love. She said she loved her sister, loved her brothers. But she did have conflict with her father. But nobody asked about this conflict. What kind of conflict? Nobody asked. Didn't come in. I wanted to know, hey, what was the conflict? The jury didn't even ask what was the conflict. Just she had a conflict with her father. Okay. So they would hang out. They would, this girl was the oldest of 5 kids. She said we would play pranks on my younger siblings. We would make friendship bracelets, listen to music. We'd go hang out at the mall, go to the movies, typical teenage things. Then she was asked, do you remember when she went missing? And she gave the exact date that she went missing. She goes, were you guys hanging out at the time she went missing? She goes, no, her dad forbid it. The defense was out of their seat. Sidebar. Can we have a sidebar? So the judge says, okay, gives them a sidebar. Then the attorneys go sit back down after the sidebar. He excuses the judge. He excuses the jury. He says, we have a legal issue to work out, and we'll bring you back in a few minutes. Shouldn't take long. Well, apparently there was a motion in limine that precluded this witness from talking about why she was not allowed to hang out with Alissa anymore. The fact that he forbid it. We don't know why he forbid it, because apparently this has all been the subject of a motion precluding this coming in. And she shouldn't have said what she said, but so the judge asked the prosecution, did you warn her she shouldn't talk about certain? Yes, we did. And we didn't anticipate, based on the question we asked, that was going to be her response. And the judge agreed with it. There was different ways she could have answered that question. But it's out there now. The jury heard it. So the defense moved for a mistrial. And the judge says, no. If you want, when I bring the jury back in, you can make a motion to strike her comment, her response, and I'll grant it. Now, if for me, I would not have made that motion, because now the jury's going to dwell on it. Like, oh, she said he forbid it. Ooh, why do they're instructed not to speculate on why we tell you to do certain things, but of course they're speculating. Why am I not allowed to hear that he forbid her, whatever? I don't know. We don't know. They stopped hanging out probably about 10 months before she went missing. Right as, like, this girl, the witness, was a senior, she was a junior. Alissa wasn't allowed to talk to Charity that year. We don't know why. I want to know why. I want to know why. Okay. We do know that Alissa liked to smoke pot occasionally. That did come out. Maybe that was the reason. I don't know. The next person, like I said, on the stand was John Turney. Now, John Turney. And I've already kind of told you pretty much what he testified to about the family dynamic. Living with his mother, moving from California to Phoenix. Mom gives birth to Alissa, then she marries Michael. Michael adopts Alissa and John. And then they have Sarah, and da 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 da. Yeah, I know. Okay, so tomorrow you will hear John's testimony. Good looking guy. Oh yeah, nice looking guy. Have I talked your ear off? Interesting case. Like I said, I just don't know what the evidence is. So after they dismissed the jury for the day, there was some discussion about allegations of sexual molestation of Alissa. And is that going to be elicited through different testimony, here or there by the prosecution? The prosecution said no, it's not, because the defense was making a motion that it not be mentioned. We don't know why it can't be mentioned. But what the prosecution did say is that, it was a question that was asked of Michael Turney during his interview with ABC's 2020, and we do intend to play that for the jury. Did you sexually molest your daughter? And he probably said no, and that's going to be the end of it. But I can tell you, and I think I did tell you, that there's a history of this in their family, that Michael Turney's brother, anyway, if you go back and listen a couple of days ago when I told you all the stuff that I knew that the jury's not supposed to know about this guy. I just don't know how they're going to convict him of murder. I don't know where the evidence is. I will tell you that Sarah testified, about moving across the street and then moving back to the original house where Alissa went missing. She also testified that shortly after Miss Alissa went missing, her dad purchased a brand new truck, but it was the exact same make, model, and color as the previous truck. Police never saw that truck again. Nope. That's circumstantial evidence, but very circumstantial, very, very circumstantial. But that's the only thing I've heard, really. That's it. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show today. Make sure you have a great Tuesday. Leave me a comment. I enjoy your comments. Let me know you stopped by, that you watched, and I will see you tomorrow. Yes, in the Wednesday episode of Crafting and Crime Daily. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.